This is the Autolite Sportsman Challenge, and you're looking at a record crowd in attendance here for the 1994 running of the NHRA Slick 50 Nationals. Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Stevens, and welcome to the 1994 Autolite Sportsman Challenge on Prime Network. We're here at Houston Raceway Park in Houston, Texas, to bring you plenty of action in Top Alcohol Dragster, Top Alcohol Funny Car, and highlights of all of the final rounds of the Sportsman categories. You know, before the season began, there was a lot of talk about what kind of numbers we would see in Houston because of the conditions here. A near sea level altitude and usually dry air leads to lots of horsepower. But this weekend, all bets are off. The weather is humid, and everybody is curious to see just what kind of numbers will come up once the racers get their tune-ups locked in. Another story we'll be following involves one of the top guns in Top Alcohol Funny Car. And with that story, here's my colleague, Bob Fry.
Thanks, Bill. The number one on the side of Randy Anderson's car indicates that he is indeed the reigning NHRA Winston World Champion in Top Alcohol Funny Car. Randy's gotten off to a pretty good start so far, qualifying number one at both Pomona and Phoenix. He's again the number one qualifier here at Houston, only he hopes to fare a little bit better in the eliminations. In the first two events, Randy has failed to get into the winner's circle. If he wins here at Houston, it won't be easy. It's a great field of cars we got lined up for this event. Randy has a little extra added incentive because Slick 50 is his sponsor. Slick 50 also the sponsor of the race here at Houston. Now for the story on Top Alcohol Dragsters, let's join Alan Reinhardt.
Thanks, Bob. Unlike an Alcohol Funny Car, an Alcohol Dragster, there is no reigning champ. Winston champ Blaine Johnson and his brother Alan have decided to make the move to Top Fuel, and that leaves the door wide open. Tom Conway, Chuck Baird, and Jay Payne all finished just behind Blaine in the championship a year ago. Payne's looking good this weekend. He's the defending champ. He has already won one national event and one points race here on the 93 season. For Chuck Baird, the news isn't so good. Broke the car in qualifying, got it back together, broke the car again in round one. He's not sure he's got enough parts left to put it back together. We'll have to find that out a little bit later on.
And Chuck Baird's problem leading to a sixth-place qualifying position this weekend.
That injected carb, Keith Stark, set the pace. Whether he can go 4 rounds or not remains to be seen. It's Conway, Barney, Jay Payne, and Sean Hyland. Pretty strong top 5, 572, the low ET. Keith Stark would meet Troy Buff in round number 1. Mark Talifaro against Darrell Hitman, Payne and Bowl, Hyland, and Jay Meyer. Watch this, the number 1 qualifier nearest the camera against Troy Buff up, and Adam Keith Stark. It looked good, but it is deadly for performance and a stunning first-round upset. The number 16 qualifier, Troy Buff, advances, as do Darrell Hitman, Jay Payne, and Sean Hyland on their side of the ladder. Tom Conway advances into round 2 along with the red-hot Darryl Russell and the Killer Bees, Bill Barney and Chucky Baird.
Well, let's take a look at the top qualifiers in Top Alcohol Funny Car. From the bottom up, and number 5, Jeff Rapp, and the 4-slot Tony Bartone. Then Joe Penland, Bob Newberry, number 2, and the world champion Randy Anderson up top. The first round pairings looked like this, but there was quite a race in the first round between the 13th qualifier Frank Manzo and the number 4 qualifier Tony Bartone.
Bartone in the Torco MPZ Pontiac on the far side of the screen, taking on the Kendall GT1 Dodge of Frank Manzo. The higher qualified car should have had a walkover into the next round. That's the way it should have gone. But somebody forgot to tell that Frank Manzo. 587, brilliant first round performance. The number 4 qualifier, Bartone, out of here. So this is the way they'll shape up in the second round. Anderson and Austin. Manzo takes on Jeff Rapp in the Texas car. On the other side of the ladder, Bob Newberry took on Winter Nationals champion John Weaver. And if you think the number 4 qualifier going out at the hands of number 13 was something, wait till you see this. Newberry qualified number 2, John Weaver qualified number 15. But John Weaver gets the win and continues his magnificent start to the 94 campaign. That's the way they'll line up for round 2.
And the 2 cars that we'll be watching first off, making their burnouts. That's Darrell Hitman in the far lane from Hanford, California, and he'll be going up against the hometowner, Troy Buff from Houston, Texas.
These are 2 of the very conventional alcohol dragsters that we set up at the beginning of the program. Supercharged, alcohol burning, big wings on the back. The burnout's here to heat up the tires, get a lot of rubber on the track, and provide maximum traction for Troy Buff and Darrell Hitman. Hitman had a great season last year, finished in the top 10 in points, made 17 of the 18 national events, put his heating and air conditioning business on hold for a while he went out and enjoyed a whirlwind tour with that Top Alcohol car. Troy Buff has to be on cloud 9 right now, Bill. He took out the #1 qualifier in the opening round. That was good news for Troy, also good news for the rest of the field. They don't have to contend with Keith Stark.
Not only that, but Troy Buff, one of only 2 drivers that are running an Oldsmobile engine in the field this weekend.
The other driver using an Oldsmobile is Darrell Hitman. Through all the runs that Darrell made last year in that Continental Tour, he really did sharpen his reaction times. He was 6th best in the Alcohol Dragster field last year with getting out of the gate. If he moves first right here, the Texas car, Troy Buff, is in big trouble.
Well, let's see who gets out first this time. It's Hitman. But Buff has broken in the near lane. I don't know if you heard that, but as Hitman won that race, Bob, it sounded like something went on his race car in the traps.
He had some problems. 619, 181, certainly not all inspiring numbers, and will be interesting to see if Darrell can put the car back together and answer the bell for the semifinals. This is the Castrol GTX car. Bill Barney slated to go against Chuck Baird. We saw Chuck with his car in disarray back in the pit area, could not get it back together. He's a no-show for this round. Alan?
Well, Darrell, it's pretty obvious that bang in the top end, broken transmission, burst panels out of it. But the good news is you're headed to the semis, only 619.
Well, I'll take it. It was only 619. Pyro and the Valvoline Dragster here's been doing pretty good. I think we lost a transmission. We'll have to fix it and come back for the next round.
You got a little bit of luck. You might be able to just stretch that out.
Well, if it's luck, then I'll take it this time.
One thing Darrell learned besides just getting off the starting line last year, he learned how to plug those sponsors and help pay the bills. Speaking of bills, here's one. Barney, the Castrol GTX team driver, was slated to go against Chuck Baird. Chuck, as we mentioned, mechanical problems, could not answer the call. Bill Barney is a very strong race car. One of the cars, every time out, Bill, he could step up and get the win.
Well, I'm sure he's very excited about how he's already surpassed last year's performance when he went out to Tiffany Highland in round 1.
So a free shot right here, and the car that turns the quicker elapsed time in the preceding round gets lane choice. And
oops.
I was just going to mention he's probably going to run for lane choice, but not that way. Talk about having luck on your side. Darrell Hitman mentioned that in the interview with Alan. Bill Barney here breaks right off the starting line. There's some fluid down there. Could be a rear end or a transmission, but he does get the win because there was nobody in the other lane. Had Chuck Baird even showed up, he probably would have advanced.
Boy, we have got plenty of broken race car parts at this racetrack this weekend. When will it all end?
It won't end for Bill Barney at least until the semifinals. Bill, you talked about the weather at the start of the show. Let's take a look at that in depth with Alan Reinhart.
All of the alcohol racers here this weekend have their very own weather station. You have to tune one of those cars consistently. Allied Signal has set one up here on the manufacturer's midway so the fans can keep track. Altimeter, air density, thermometer, humidity. That's the one that's bothering the guys today. It's too high. And the barometer. You can take all these numbers, feed them into a calculator, and get a corrected altitude of exactly what the air is like. With the humidity that high on a day like today, it's up over 1,000 feet, even though the actual altitude here in Houston is much less than that.
As we get ready for more action in round 2 of Top Alcohol Dragster, and Bob, Jay Payne, who has lane choice, has swapped lanes with Sean Hyland now, and has put Sean in the lane where Bill Barney just leaked all over the track.
I believe it's more psychological than anything else. Drivers have a tendency to think that after something was spilled in a lane, it's not going to be quite as good as it was prior to that. But the NHRA Safety Safari is known throughout the automobile racing industry as the best at what they do. And I don't think Sean Hyland, the kid out of Oregon, is going to have any problems getting down that racetrack. His big problem, however, might come from Jay Payne. Jay Payne looking for the Winston Championship this year that eluded him last year after that accident in mid-season, kept him off track for just a little bit. So the kid with the Pyroil car and the veteran Jay Payne from California.
And it looks like Payne is out first. Can Hyland catch him? No, Jay Payne will take the win in the far lane as he shoots a 592 at 233 miles per hour.
Jay Payne's car just consistently quick and consistently fast. His 592 good enough to beat Sean Hyland, who trailed with a game effort of 597. Tom Conway will be up next, and his wife Linda, the school teacher out of Oklahoma. Conway in the opening round got by Michael Gore, who was a no-show, but Conway put down the best time of the round, a sizzling 583. We have already seen one Darrell advance, Hitman. In the near lane now, it will be Darryl Russell.
And we hear that Tom Conway has been experimenting with an injected nitro car, Bob.
He has, but that experiment is on the shelf for right now. Let's go to the end of the racetrack now and join Alan Reinhart.
Well, Jay, your early season streak is continuing. Tell me about the lane change up there.
Shelley went out and looked at it, and Barney spilled a little bit right on the starting line, and it was a little balled up. And we had told them ahead of time if Barney did anything dumb, we might change lanes. So
Shelley usually make those decisions. I know she always helps out with your team.
all the time. I don't even know what the lanes look like. I just go in them.
All you got to do is get in, push those pedals, and hang on for dear life. Here comes Darrell Russell as he gets set to duke it out with Tom Conway. Darrell qualified number 7. May have been a surprise to those that are only casually familiar with this class, but Darrell's a very strong runner. The team out of Cypress, Texas, is going to give Tom Conway all he can handle right here. Tom, the last guy besides Blaine Johnson to win the Winston Championship, and that was 4 long years ago.
This race is a rerun of the Winston Drag Racing Series final at the Texas Motorplex last weekend, won by Conway. Let's see what happens this time. Conway is out first, and he drives away, no problem, in the far lane, as he will move on now to the next round. And his winning number's a 5.82 at 238 miles per hour.
Tom Conway advances. Meanwhile, Darrell Russell's got some problems stopping the race car. No chute coming out. You can see him bouncing around, hanging on for dear life, and he does make the swing down there at the far end of the racetrack.
So here's the final 4 in Top Alcohol Dragster. Hitchman against Payne, Conway, and Barney. Right now, let's get down to the long end, and Alan Reinhart.
This is a position I know Tom Conway likes to be in. Low ET of the round at 81.
That's pretty good. I was a little concerned about the humidity in the track, but the track's excellent.
Tell me about the nitro experiment. Is that continuing?
Yeah, we're going to do a little experiment. Yesterday was the first time we'd ever started it. I guess it was the day before yesterday. And we had some problem with the O-ring seizing up. Nitros apparently makes them swell up from what I'm used to using. So we'll be back with it.
And we'll be back with Top Alcohol Funny Car action when we return. Welcome back to the Autolite Sportsman Challenge as we get ready for round 2 action in Top Alcohol Funny Car. There you see the automobile of Jeff Rapp from Phillipsburg, New Jersey, who'll be squaring off against 2-time Winston Top Alcohol Funny Car champion Frank Manzo.
1993, these two cars both top 10 finishers. Jeff Rapp finished number 5. Frank Manzo finished number 6. And even though Jeff Rapp is listed as being out of Phillipsburg, New Jersey, first of all, look at this. What a burnout. He's still going, and Manzo hasn't even started yet. I was going to say, Phillipsburg, New Jersey is where we list Jeff Rapp, but this car is owned by Steve Carter and the gang right out of Texas. This is the last race for this car. Jeff will be virtually unemployed or self-employed, depending upon who you talk to after this race. Frank Manzo looking for a 3rd Winston Championship at the wheel of that Kendall GT1 Dodge Daytona. So if Don Prudhomme has his final strike tour that is going around the national events all season long, I guess this weekend is the final strike tour for Jeff Rapp, Steve Carter, and the Carter Resources team machine. They'd like to go out a winner.
Last year, Rapp was a semifinal loser to Pat Austin at this event. However, last year he did run the top speed for Top Alcohol Funny Car here at the Slick 50s at well over 240 miles an hour.
The car always runs a really good top mile an hour. It's a car that'll run 235, 236 on occasion, but averages right in that mid-230 range. Frank Manzo runs his car with a completely different setup than almost everybody else. Listen to the RPMs that Manzo gets with his car on the starting line.
A good start. Both cars off together at the top end of the racetrack. Manzo pulls ahead by about half a car length to take the win. And Frank's numbers a 592 at 239 miles per hour.
You've got a feel for Jeff Rapp. He carted a 596, 237 miles an hour, and he's got nothing to show for it. So he'll be thumbing through the 1-ads come Monday morning. Randy Anderson, his father Brad, a former Winston Top Alcohol Funny Car champion. This is the Slick 50 team machine, the reigning Winston champ. He will take on the 4-time Winston champion, the Castrol Syntec team machine, Dynamax, Oldsmobile, etc., etc. Doesn't get any better than this in this class, Austin and Anderson.
If you are someone who books numbers, this would be a tough one to call. Who do you go with? Of course, Anderson now the #1 qualifier in all the events so far this season, and Pat Austin, the winningest driver in NHRA Top Alcohol Funny Car history. Let's go to Alan.
All right, Frank, now I want to know where this performance came from. You had basically a horrible qualifying effort, then an 87 the first round, now a 92.
Well, I think we're just as much surprised as everybody else here watching us. We struggled the first 4 runs actually. First week of the year, first actual time I sat back in the car. And really on the first round eliminations there, we have so much respect for Bartone. We just kind of put back what we thought would work. And we disregarded all the gauges as far as the altimeter and the weather. Went back to our normal tune-up, let's say if we're at Englishtown back in New Jersey, and it ran really good.
I'm glad we went out and diagnosed all the things you have to do with regards to the weather earlier. Frank just came in, kind of thumbed his nose at the whole deal. Of course, he's from New Jersey, and anything besides plowing snow out of the way, he feels like a bright, balmy day. Randy Anderson and Pat Austin. Dynamite matchup right here. Randy Anderson, one of the few drivers that really does put a lot of pressure on himself. He says, I've got the best car out here. I should win every time I go to the starting line.
And I wouldn't be so sure that Pat Austin wouldn't say the very same thing. It's Anderson in the far lane with the win as he cracks a 582. Look at this, 243 miles per hour. And Austin, a not so bad 591, 237 in losing. Austin and Anderson, a couple of names that certainly the stuff legends are made. Let's get on to Alan Reinhart.
Randy, you told me in qualifying you were having ignition problems with this car. I'd say you found the problem.
Well, we hope so. We felt like we were doing pretty good the first day when I run the 73, and then the gremlins started in. But we think we've narrowed it down, and we've made a few changes, and I can guarantee we're going to make them changes again.
Tell me about the cloud cover and the weather. Is that good for you or bad?
Well, I like the cloud cover. Obviously, the humidity is not something we favor, but it's the same for everybody, and we're going to work with it.
And the next two automobiles squaring off will be those of Vern Moats and John Weaver.
The Moats and Massey team machine, a very strong runner for a number of years. Vern Moats used to run some of those old supercharged Alderds back in the 1960s. He, along with teammate Bob Massey, have fielded the Kendall Mopar-sponsored Dodge machine out of the central part of the United States, and they are a perennial top 10 finisher. Finished number 7 in Winston Championship points last year. Very, very strong automobile. In the opening round, they stopped Tim Wilkerson with a 596. In the far lane, John Weaver. He and the family have decided to go on tour this year, and that's interesting and unique for teams in this alcohol funny car category who usually stay pretty much in their own geographic parts of the country. Alan Reinhart's got an interesting little tidbit for us. Alan?
In drag racing, we're always talking about the weather. There is one problem that's unique to these alcohol funny cars. When we have cool air and high humidity, the heat from the engine under the body will literally fog the windshield when they put the body down. Now, there's a couple of options. There are some anti-fogging agents, or you can have a crewman wipe the windshield. But sometimes it gets so bad, you just have to live with it.
Back to the round 2 matchup now between John Weaver and Vern Moats. Moats, the number 7 qualifier for the event this weekend. And Weaver just made the show, qualifying at number 15.
Well, we know that 15th qualifiers and even 16th qualifiers here at Houston can advance. Case in point, John Weaver in round 1, Troy Buff in the Alcohol Dragster category. The big thing, though, is can they have any staying power after that one big upset? Weaver's going to have his hands full with Vern Moats.
And these are two guys that really don't get a lot of national attention, as you mentioned, Bob. They pretty much stick to their own geographical territories in top alcohol funny car.
Vern Moats won't run a whole lot of races out of that middle section of the United States. John Weaver, however, this year will take that show on the road, much like Darrell Hitman did last year in the top alcohol dragster category. Should be a nice matchup right here. If they hook him up on the starting line, 6 flat, high 590s possibly, what it's going to take to win this race.
Let's watch. They went, but it's Vern Moats with the win in the near lane. Only a 6:05 at 232 miles per hour.
So much for my prognostication that a 6 flat or high 590 would be needed to win that. Hey, that's why I'm in the announcing business and not in the numbers game. For amusement only, of course. Joe Penland's spectacular race car rolls up to the starting line next. He will take on one of the Oak Ridge boys, Perry Mullins, out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The National Hot Rod Association divides the country into 7 geographic areas. Perry Mullins runs out of Division 2 or the Southeast. Joe Penland runs out of Division 4. or the Southwest, and neither driver will race too much out of their own little geographic part of the country. Alan?
Typical Vern Moats run. Nice, smooth. 605 might not be enough, but the car looks good.
It checked pretty good in second, and when I went into second gear, so I had to back throttle just a little bit, but it turned out pretty decent.
What changes will you make to try to stop that next round?
We'll probably have to soften the clutch a little bit. There isn't quite as much track as I thought there was.
It's nice to see Vern so pumped up after a big win, huh, Bill?
He's flying high, isn't he? All right, back at the starting line now. Mullins and Penland getting ready to go to work for their 2,000 horsepower top alcohol funny cars. The winner of this race moving into the final four.
Terry Mullins is making his first national event appearance for the year, as is Joe Penland. Penland, a young kid, the family operation, father, son, work on the race car, and it is certainly a beautiful automobile. They have a lot of fun with the team machine, but right now it is strictly business. If they want to advance, they've got to take out one of the very tough runners in the country in Terry Mullins.
Mullins out first. But it's Penland at the other end with the win as he shoots a 592 at 237 miles per hour. And Bob, he absolutely got tucked in by Mullins at the start line. 4:41 reaction time for Mullins, but Penland only a 5:06.
Realizing a 4:00 is perfect, that means Mullins had a couple of hundreds in the bank right off the starting line. Anderson and Manzo, Moats and Penland. When we come back with the final four, that Moats Penland is youth and experience, and Allen is standing by with youth.
Joe, that was a nice, smooth lap, and unlike some of these guys, this is really just kind of a hobby for you.
Yeah, it is. It's just me and the family. We just get together and have a lot of fun, and we're just a serious hobby.
How much fun is it when it's this much work? You guys got to go back and get ready for next round.
Oh, it's worth it for us. We really like it.
And lots of action still to come in Top Alcohol Dragster as we take a look at Tom and Linda Conway busy on their car in the pits as they prepare for Final Four action when the Autolite Sportsman Challenge continues. Welcome back to the Autolite Sportsman Challenge. And you're in the pit of Joe Penland sitting in his Top Alcohol funny car. This could be a big day for him as he heads for the Final Four.
You're almost sitting in his lap, as a matter of fact. Semifinals in the Alcohol Dragster, and one more time, Jay Payne is going to switch lanes at the last moment. Remember, when there's a 16-car field, number one runs 16, 2 against 15, until they come down and meet the 8 and 9 cars in the middle. The higher qualified car gets lane choice for the opening round, and then each subsequent round, the car that had the better elapsed time in the preceding round gets to choose lanes. He can make that decision right up until the time when the cars begin their burnout. It was Jay Payne's option, and he exercised that option at the very last moment. He's now on the far side of the racetrack, looking to go into the final round for the second time this year at the National Event Competition, while Darrell Hitman is looking for his first ever national championship win. Payne last year made more runs down the track than anybody in this class except Blaine Johnson, and averaged a brilliant 593 in the process. This guy, Darrell Hitman's got his work cut out for him. The lone Oldsmobile remaining in Top Alcohol Dragster competition.
And we all know that there will be a new Top Alcohol Dragster champion in 1994 with Blaine Johnson moving to Top Fuel. And a lot of folks think that Payne is one of the front runners to pick up that title at the end of the season.
Darrell would like to throw his hat into the ring. He could take a giant step in that direction if he could just take out Jay Payne here in the semifinal match.
Payne out first by almost a car length. And he drives away for the win over Hitman. His elapsed time, a 592 at 233 miles per hour.
Jay Payne running almost exactly what he averaged in 1993. We told you he averaged 593 last year. Just a shade quicker than that right here. On the starting line, advantage Jay Payne. We told you earlier how quick Darrell Hitman had been off the starting mark all of last year. Well, he needed to be a little bit quicker off the line, a little bit quicker on the racetrack, a little bit faster on the top end, and a whole lot closer to Jay Payne than this if he wanted to go to the final round. Alan?
Well, Jay, with Barney being broke and you got around Hitman, it's going to be you and Tom Conway again. And I have a feeling after last year's race, he probably feels he owes you one.
Yeah, probably. He's the man that helped us get here, though. So we got to give him more credit than anybody.
And you ran a 92, not very happy with that. What are you expecting out of this car?
Well, it's got to run in the middle 80s to be competitive with him at all, because he'll probably run a low 80 right there.
Let's find out.
Tom Conway gets the single run right here. We saw Bill Barney break in that earlier round. He was not able to return. Interesting in that two of the highly regarded cars, Chuck Baird and Bill Barney, both broke at this event. Neither one could come back, and were only on the third stop on the NHRA Winston Drag Racing Tour. Does not augur well for those cars for the rest of the year.
And it's an especially depressing sight down at Chuck Baird's pit because just about everything he brought to Houston, engines, transmissions, rear ends, and various states of disrepair scattered all over the ground down there.
We talked earlier in the show about lane choice. Let's see if Conway can get it right here. He's got to run quicker than a 592. Tom Conway goes 582 at 238 miles per hour. Conway, who was the quickest car in the country last year, averaging 590, shows that he's going to be very tough in that matchup against Jay Payne. Repeat of the 93 final.
And here is a look at that final from last year's event in Houston. The #1 qualifier, Jay Payne, against the #6 qualifier, Tom Conway. And this is what happened.
Both cars coming off semi-final round wins where they were just 1/100th of a second apart. It was a magnificent matchup between two guys who would go right down to the wire in their efforts to track down Blaine Johnson for that Winston Championship.
And if you want a close drag race, take a look at what happened. Payne would win with a 583.5 to Conway's 583.8. Right now, let's go down to Allen.
Tom, last year Jay Payne beat you here. This time you get another shot, and you've got a 10th advantage in performance.
Well, you never know until you get there, but I think we feel pretty good about it, so we'll see.
The two of you are really pretty good friends off the track.
Yeah, and I do all the fuel system work, but I need to cut back some, I think.
All right, so let's take a look at the final matchup for top alcohol dragster here on the Autolite Sportsman Challenge. Jay Payne against Tom Conway. What should be a terrific final. Vern Motes from Des Moines, Iowa, Joe Penland from Nederland, Texas, both looking for their first big victory in a national event in 1994. And the sun has been out all afternoon now, but we've really seen no trouble from any of the cars in getting hooked up on the racetrack.
The sun will start to become a factor as it heats up the track. It starts to make it a little bit tougher for the race cars to get traction and could become more of a driver's race. If indeed that is the case in this pair, the advantage would obviously favor Vern Motes. If the track is good and it's strictly horsepower, based on what we've seen so far today, you gotta like the kid.
It's Penland who will go to the final. Joe Penland, who runs a 595 at 237 miles per hour.
There is Steve Boggs walking away. He is working as the crew chief for the Penland team here in 1994. The kid was pretty quick out of the starting box, had 400s in the bank, and then never looked back. Vern Motes obviously had some problems. He slowed to a 6.35. Joe Penland probably already starting to chew at his fingernails as he's got to be a little nervous in his first final round ever. And he's going to have to take on one of the real veterans of this sport. Now, Randy Anderson isn't even 30 yet, but he is a Winston champion. His dad won the Winston title 3 times. That's a lot of experience for Penland to face. And hey, if it's not Randy in the finals, Penland will have to face Frank Manzo. And Frank won the Winston title twice and a couple of Northeast Division crowns to go along with it. No matter how you look at it, it's not going to be easy pickings for the kid in the finals.
And we've seen all weekend Frank Manzo running some incredible top speeds with that car. Right now, it'll be interesting to see if Anderson has enough power to overcome Manzo. Let's go to Allen.
Joe, headed now into your first national event final, and you've got some consistency in this car.
Yeah, Steve's really tuning a great job for us. Guys are really working hard. Hope we can do some good.
What kind of combination do you run in this thing to get it down the track?
It's a Newberry design, SSI blower. Steve Boggs doing the tuning.
Just getting the hang of this. All he's got to do is learn to throw in those sponsors. Oh, there aren't any. Thanks, Dad. The Slick 50 Team Machine and the Kendall GT1 cars ready to slug it out. Randy Anderson has already run 243 miles an hour, so Manzo wants to make sure he's with him at half track. Might not even be with him on the starting line. Buster Couch, the NHRA starter, showing the team that they've got to shut it off, leaking out underneath the race car. John Glade, the mechanic for Ace Manzo, is going to try to get that thing tightened up. Brad Anderson telling his kid, hold on for just a moment. He will finally be motioned to the starting line by the starter, Buster Couch. If it's a single, it really is a tough way for Frank Manzo to lose here in the semifinals.
The mechanical bugaboos continue to plague some of the top-running cars, and Randy Anderson will single and move on to the finals.
Boy, it was awfully close. You saw Manzo starting to make a move towards the starting line, but once the starter has determined that an inordinate amount of time has been used up, he will tell the other driver, come on up and stage it, you've won it. And there's Frank Manzo just cruising on down the racetrack. Randy Anderson, for the record, ran a 5.88, 242. He'd have been hard to take out even if Manzo was firing on all 8.
Well, Frank has got to be disappointed, but obviously there was plenty of liquid pouring from the bottom of his engine. Right now, Alan Reinhart is with Randy Anderson.
Randy, after your third #1 qualifier spot, now you're headed into your first final. You finally found that race day consistency.
Well, you know, in 88 it slowed down a little bit, but we're happy with that. I think that gives us lane choice. And
it does.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to step on a little bit more. I know Steve Boggs is saving a little bit in that Penland car, and we're going to have to get after it a little bit.
Randy, who thinks he should win every time he comes to the racetrack, will get his opportunity to win against Joe Penland in the Top Alcohol Funny Car Final. Alan is the mechanical whiz of this trio. Let's see if he can tell us what happened to Ace.
One of those fuel lines, or one of those oil lines going between the filter housing and the pump that was leaking is why they shut Manzo off. It ended up being just loose, but they weren't sure, so that's why they didn't want to take the chance, oil the tires, and crash the car.
Definitely not how the two-time Winston champion wanted his day to end. We'll have highlights of the finals in all the Sportsman classes, as well as the 2 alcohol class finals. We return on the Autolite Sportsman Challenge.
Back at Houston Raceway Park, where this weekend over 500 race cars, in fact almost 1 million race cars, came out to try their hand at racing here for the titles of the Slick 50 Nationals. In the near lane, it's the Music Emporium car, the race car that ate my brain. Jim Cappiello taking on Craig Abbott in Super Street, a category with a 1090 index. You want to be close to it, but not under it. And how about that? The race car that ate my brain gets the win. Try to digest that, Jim Cappiello. 1086 at 136 miles per hour. In the Super Gas category, it's a 990 index. And it was Jim Caudle with his Ford taking on Jeff Heffler with the Chevrolet. Heffler trying to run that 990 in order to get the win. Takes the Ford car. Who you putting your money on? I'll give you a hint. Take that Chevrolet. Heffler gets the first win with his 1963 model Chevy, and the crowd went wild. Well, at least Jeff went wild. In Super Comp, an 890 index category, young J.R. Learcamp from Olympia, Washington, got the single. His opponent, Pat Patterson, broke, and he was left somewhere on pit road.
It's a nice place to win. It reminds me a lot of like home. The track's real good, and I feel comfortable down here. It's just nice to finally get one after the 4th time. It makes it nice, you know.
Reminds him a lot of home. A lot of people get Houston and Seattle confused. In the stock final, Harvey Emmons III edged out Ronnie West. Both drivers ran too quick. That means they ran under their allowed index, but Harvey Emmons was closer to his index, and he gets the win in the Pyroyal team machine in the far lane. And the Emmons clan took it rather well. Former Super Gas competitor Jay Coughlin won over Forrest Perdola in the Super Stock final. Forrest fouled out. Sometimes you can't see the lights for the Christmas trees.
I've only been running Super Stock. This is my 2nd national event in Super Stock, and I couldn't ask for a better start.
And not a bad finish either. In competition eliminator, all the big blocks went home early. There was a couple of 4-bangers, including Steve Benoit from Lafayette, Louisiana, driving the Bayou Bullet. He faced off against local favorite Raymond Martin from beautiful downtown Baytown, Texas, in a battle of F-Econo dragsters. Little 4-cylinder cars here. Both cars running on the same index. It would be a heads-up start. The key? Let's wait and see which driver gets off the starting line first, because he'll probably win it. Raymond Martin did, and he did. Martin on the far side of the racetrack wins it over a very tough competition eliminator field. And the crowd, as the saying goes, went wild. And so did Raymond.
Well, Raymond, I don't know if I can make this any sweeter for you, but it was a huge hole shot.
Great. When I left, I didn't look over and he wasn't there, so I knew he was in trouble.
You ran a 61 to his 54. I'm trying to remember also the last time that there were 2 4-cylinder cars in the final at comp.
I don't know if it's ever happened. So.
That might put you in the history books.
It's great. It's great. Thank y'all.
Raymond Martin and Steve Benoit, a couple of 4-cylinder dragster drivers, and very happy if I can't win it with my F Econo car. At least you can, Raymond.
Right now, it is time to get down to some getting down. The top alcohol dragster final, and who says history doesn't repeat itself? This is a rematch of the 1993 Slick 50 Nationals top alcohol dragster final. Jay Payne against Tom Conway.
It is early in the 1994 season. Tom Conway's first national event. Jay Payne has already been out on tour, has already won on the Winston Drag Racing Series divisional event and the national event. If he were to win this race right here, even though it is still very early in the year, he can make it awfully tough for the rest of the top alcohol dragster field this year. Tom Conway and probably every other dragster driver out there hopes that he can put down Jay Payne in this final.
And as you can see, the sun is beginning to set. The racetrack is pretty much in the shade, which means that these cars shouldn't have any trouble hooking up. I have a feeling that these guys tuned a little bit more power into these cars for this final.
They are very close personal friends. As Tom mentioned, he sells his fuel systems to Jay Payne, and they do sit and compare notes a lot. That won't happen when Conway decides to run that injected car, because Jay won't have any notes to compare. But right now, the wedge-motored machine in Tom Conway's entry taking on the traditional big block Brad Anderson type Chrysler Hemi in the frame rails of Jay Payne's tubular chassis. The finals in top alcohol dragster.
It's Conway. It looked as if Jay Payne had gotten a little bit out of shape, about 500 feet out. Tom Conway goes on for the win with a 580 at 238 miles per hour.
580, great performance, saving the best till last, 238 miles an hour. Now watch this, on the starting line, Jay Payne a little bit quicker. He loves to get that front end up dangling in the air, and that might have cost him as he got just a bit out of the groove. And that's all Tom Conway needed as he takes his first win of 1994.
Tom, I have a feeling that you owed Jay that one from last year.
Yeah, I did. We tuned him up last year, and he outran us, and he's won this twice, so I think it's our turn.
Does this mean you're going to keep tuning for him now?
We'll probably do a little bit.
What about the nitro burner? When do we get to see that motor again?
We're going to try to experiment in a couple weeks, and you'll see it pretty soon. I don't know how good it'll be, but you'll see it.
And we're getting ready for the top alcohol funny car final. And if you're handicapping this race, it may be a landslide when you look at all of the factors regarding both competitors.
That's what Dewey thought. So much for landslides, huh? You're right, though, Bill. Anderson does have to be a prohibitive favorite. He's the Winston champ for a reason. He's got a dominating automobile. There is Steve Boggs, who is working not only with Tony Bartone this year, but also with the Penland team. And that is a special ace up the sleeve of the Penland gang. Steve Boggs, arguably one of the best at tuning this particular type of race car. But you got to figure the kid's a little nervous. He's never been in a final round before. He has certainly never faced a driver with the equipment and the experience of a Randy Anderson. Randy Anderson can do it all.
And Randy Anderson is going to have somewhat of an emotional advantage here. He's qualified #1 in every event, has yet to win one of the national events this season, so he may be a bit more motivated.
Just to bring you up to speed, Randy Anderson went 6 flat in the first round, ran a 582 in the second, 588 in the semis. Penland ran 605, 592, 595. Should be good.
It's close. But it's Anderson with the win. And everybody in the Slick 50 crew is pumping the air. Anderson with a 585 and 241 for the championship here at the Slick 50 Nationals.
Penland tried to negate some of that Anderson horsepower by putting it on the champ, 0.04 of a second on the starting line. But watch this, the Pontiac on the far side driving away, almost 242 for the win.
Well, champ, even in drag racing, the best defense is a good offense.
Yeah, you know, this is a big win for us here at the Slick 50 Nationals, being our major sponsor. I can't say enough for what they've done for us. And, you know, this is a good start. You know, maybe we can defend that world championship.
Tell me about the race car. It's looked great all day.
Yeah, today it's run just fine. You know, we've had some problems during qualifying after the 73, but we're working on it. I think we're headed the right direction, and I think you're going to see a lot more of it.
Congrats to all of our winners. Top Alcohol Funny Car, Randy Anderson, Tom Conway in the Dragsters, Little Raymond Martin's 4-banger in Comp, Jake Coughlin punched them all out in Super Stock. In the other Sportsman categories, it was Harvey Emmons III and Company in Stock, J.R. Learcamp in Super Comp, Jeff Heffler with his Corvette in Super Gas, and Jim Cappiello ate the field in Super Street.
Exciting side-by-side NHRA drag racing, and this is just the first of 10 races all season long. So join us next time on Prime Network when we come to you from Gainesville, Florida, site of the 25th NHRA Gator Nationals.